Hello, and welcome back to the Saga of the Clone Saga. This is a podcast presented by the students of S.H.I.E.L.D. in which we read through the entirety of the infamous 1990s Spider-Man Clone Saga. I am Matt, and today I'm joined by my friends who will introduce themselves.
I'm Mike.
And I am Vincent.
And today our sponsor is the Bichon. This is the dog. Thank you for sponsoring our show and being tiny so I can hold you.
Thank you for financial support.
Financial support. Vince, what are we doing today?
All right, so this episode we're talking about it's kind of hard to explain because it doesn't make sense. It is a 5-part story of Ben Reilly as the Scarlet Spider fighting the Lizard. And these are the flipbooks from the Planet of the Symbiotes issues, which were the super specials for the 4 main titles and Venom, which Planet of the Symbiotes, that was all the way back episode 15. This is now 24. And we've already moaned about how that arc doesn't seem to fit in continuity anywhere.
Yeah.
But this is where Marvel chooses to put these issues in their complete epic paperbacks. So, whatever.
It makes no sense.
I want to mention real quick, I don't know if you guys remember because it was like 4 damn months ago, in the original Clone Saga, there was also a kind of fill-in issue, which was Giant Size Spider-Man 5, where Peter Parker fights the Lizard, and Man-Thing also gets involved.
I know.
We kind of skimmed over that one because it was not remotely related, but this one at least stars Ben Reilly again. So we start with the flagship Amazing Spider-Man Super Special. And this cover here is an homage to Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man #1.
But he owes Todd money.
Which, it's fine.
I mean, I don't know if it's an homage as much as like a direct ripoff, but sure. Yeah.
Every issue should have been a direct ripoff of the first 6 issues of format.
Yeah, and the cover text I want to mention is, it says Legend of the Iraq Clone, which I don't think we've seen that terminology before. And it's like it's so stupid that I kind of like it.
Do you? I'll never see it ever again.
We might be entering the point where we're so deluded where we're just like saying things and not thinking before we say them.
Terry Cavanaugh writes this whole story, and on this first issue, he's joined by our friend Mike Lackey.
Oh, good.
And this first issue, which is the first issue, so you'd think they'd want it to seem like the flagship. There are 3 artists on this issue, and I don't recognize any of their names. I don't really care about any of them.
All the art bad.
None of it's good. None of it is good.
So off the bat, we're already delving into where the hell does this fit, because Ben is being angsty about clone stuff again, but the captions are kind of ambiguous to the specifics. Like he says the word template at some point, but it's not clear whether he's saying like I'm the clone and Pete was my template, or I'm the template and Pete is my clone, but my life still sucks because I thought I was the clone for 5 years. And it doesn't make sense, but I don't like when this was published, the clone reveal wasn't official yet. And so it kind of should be there, but I guess because it's ambiguous, you can fit it in a very narrow spot where it's that short period where they know which one's real and which one's the clone, but before Peter freaks the hell out and starts hanging out with Jackal. But this is also in the books placed after that Jackal thing.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense. And our villains here is our mercenary group called Shadow Force Alpha.
Are we not? Can we quickly talk about the art on the opening page, where we're at Aunt May's grave, and then someone just clearly like put word art on the gravestone? It's just like they just put like Arial text on it. That's like she taught us love. Yeah. Like it's not even like in a style of like it was chipped on or anything. It was just like quick, you got to add that.
Yeah, just let's added it in PowerPoint.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
PowerPoint, when you're in a pinch, not the absolute worst image editing software.
No, it's better than Word.
So I want to do the roll call for Shadow Force Alpha. These are the members of this group. We have Shell, Shot, Bombardier, Flare, Stampede, Clash, and Cordite. And they all get like these full captions explaining like their skills and kind of their motive. Like someone is like America first, and someone's like money first. And I'm like, I don't care at all.
You know G.I. Joe? And how G.I. Joe's like kind of cool?
Yeah, but all of the Joes have like really extensive.
None of these guys have a personality at all, and they're all like, you don't care.
They're also hideous. Look at those faces. Who is drawing this? Who is that?
I don't even
Shell
know
or
who is
Shot?
drawing this.
One of them
I can't tell you.
has
Are
a
you auditioning to be a member of Shadow Force Alpha this episode?
what?
So then we get to meet Ben's neighbor, Gabrielle Greer, again. And in the reading order, the last time she appeared was that like second or third arc when Ben Reilly fought Venom, which was forever ago.
Yeah.
Feels like an eternity ago.
And so we learn she finally actually hangs out with Ben, and we learn she's a poor artist and she can't get a job.
A poor artist who can't get a job. Taylor, you're in this book.
Don't get an art degree. Though that being said, for the time being at least, I'm technically also unemployed as Mike and I just graduated college.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But Ben gets a job, I guess, and he's going to be a assistant at a hospital / research facility. And while he's getting interviewed, his spider sense is going off, and there's like a government agent who's in the hospital, and it's like implied that he basically like topples governments and stuff. And so he's being guarded for some reason. It doesn't really explain why he's hospitalized, and you don't really care. And then the mercs show up. The fight goes down between them and and a bunch of guards from the government. And then Ben sneaks off and comes back with his costume and gets involved. And the writer here, Kavanaugh and Lackey, they try and use military lingo for these mercs. Like there's an editor's note explaining what script means, and they use the word exfiltrate, and it's really cringy.
It reads so poorly.
And just because I have hardly anything to talk about this episode, I'm going to use the military lingo as an excuse to talk about Stormwatch Team Achilles.
What?
Which was
what?
It was a Wildstorm book. So Warren Ellis evolved Stormwatch into Authority. So they're like, we have this Stormwatch license. And so they're like, let's make a new book. And it was written by this guy, Micah Ian Wright, who was a former Navy SEAL. And the book was really acclaimed, and it had this believable military lingo writing, and it was really nice and everything. And then, like, a year later, it was revealed that he totally lied about his entire career and had never spent any time in the military whatsoever. Like some straight up, what do they call it? Stolen honor? Stolen valor? And so that book got canceled.
So he's like that guy who went on Oprah and claimed to, like, he wrote that book and then, like, he didn't do that at all?
Yeah, he's like Oprah.
That's not what we said, Matt.
And so,
Oprah is a very well-respected person. We don't want Oprah coming after us.
We get Oprah on the show.
The story itself.
If Oprah's listening, you need space on the OWN network. The show can go on there.
So we get introduced to one of our guards, Armstrong, and he's just like this big guy, and he gets badly injured, and Dr. Pearl is going to use an experimental treatment on him, which I guess somehow triggers the lizard all the way over in the Everglades. It's like, oh shit, someone's getting an experiment done on them. I don't understand this.
My lizard senses are tingling.
I have a question about Armstrong. You remember, like, a while back on Twitter, someone shared that panel of that, like, guy with huge arms laying in, like, in a comic panel?
No,
That
no,
guy
no,
with huge arms laying in bed. Is that Armstrong?
no. That's I can't think of the character's name. That's from Grunwald's Captain America run. And again, I'm pretty sure someone in the club posted that, and then I was like, no, it makes sense. It's not shitty art because it's part of the I forget this character's name too, but there's someone in the Marvel universe. Oh, the power gambler, the power something.
Power broker.
Power broker. So the power broker, like, you pay him some money and he'll give you shitty superpowers, where basically just pump you full of steroids. And so that's the context of that panel, is that that guy had gone to the power broker and like had basically a really bad job done.
Okay, because like I thought Armstrong was like that guy. So
I think that's also the plot of Misfits season 3.
what?
I don't know. What is this?
What is that?
What? It's a British show about kids.
Stop talking. No, we don't watch that.
No.
So we move into
Billy watches it.
special, and this cover, I'd say this is the coolest cover only because the first one is a complete ripoff. But it's not much of a high bar.
Well, this cover lets you think that the lizard's going to look somewhat menacing and cool, and then we get to see the lizard
for one page. Yeah, so the cover is Ben Reilly reflected in the lizard's eye, and still Kavanaugh. Like I said, he's going to do all the issues, so I'm not going to mention that again. And the art here is Todd Smith, not a A-tier name, but he's being inked by Sal Buscema, which is kind of interesting because so far we've only seen Buscema's pencils hampered by other inkers. So now it's interesting to see the role reversal. And we may or may not see him inking way later on because he inked Spider-Girl for a bunch of years.
Oh, cool.
But, I mean, he doesn't necessarily save the art in this issue, though.
No, he doesn't. It's hard to talk about any of these issues just because, like, we keep saying this is a lizard story, but he doesn't show up really until, like, part 3.
Yeah.
Like, the end of it.
Yeah, so this second issue particularly, like, they're all the same length issues, but this second issue, I'm like, what happened? I don't know what happened in this stupid issue.
Not a thing. Like, the lizard freaks out, and then they go back to the hospital again, and, you know, this dude is still sick, and...
Yeah, the military group is trying to get the doctors to operate on their leader because apparently he was shot in the last issue. That's all that happens.
And then, like, I feel like I lost that plot thread. Like, I don't remember if that comes up again. Because a lot of these Strike Force Alpha or whatever the fuck they're called, they seem to kind of disappear also at some point. Basically, like, as the lizard officially shows up. There's one moment where Flame or Char or whatever the fucking flame guy uses his flamethrower on Ben Reilly, and there's this terrible artifact for the fire. And it's like very clearly shitty early digital coloring.
Which we're starting to see a lot of that in the recent books that we've talked about on this episode. The early digital coloring is really starting to get in and just make reading these books worse.
So I don't mean to drastically change the subject, but the cover says "Eye of the Lizard," and then this title page, where to go, says "Growing Pains Part 2," and also "Survive and Conquer." What is this called?
Oh yeah, what is the actual name of the story? Vince, you said you were going to try to find it.
Is it Growing Pains?
The arc, as far as I can tell, is Growing Pains.
What?
Growing Pains.
But otherwise, I mean, a lot of issues you'll have differing cover text and then inside titles.
Right.
So it's never really clear. But
Let's call it Growing
Pains, as far as I can tell.
Good God.
So Armstrong seems to flatline, but then he's fine, and maybe he has superpowers of some sort.
He
which are never
busts
made
through
clear.
the wall like Kool-Aid Man.
Yeah. He's just like a buff dude. He's like more of a buff dude now. Like that's what I got from it. And finally, we see the Lizard on the final page of the second issue. And I mean, I don't think he's atrocious, but like, oh wow, okay, it's the Lizard.
Look how bad Armstrong's arms look when he's busting through the wall. Look at his hands. They're bigger than his head.
It is atrocious. It's so bad.
It's so bad.
So with the Lizard, it's always a balance of how reptilian you want to go. Obviously, Steve Ditko drew him with basically just like a human-shaped face, and that's the way they went with the Amazing Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go like full-on reptilian, which is what I'd say the two of the most like influential Lizard artists would be Tom McFarlane from Torment, and then Chris Pacello from S.H.I.E.L.D, which Matt is not a fan of. But in this, he has like fins on his spine and then on his underarms, kind of like Spider-Man.
Yeah. Do either of you remember or have encountered the iguana?
No.
An iguana that Kurt Connors accidentally mutated into a monster.
I mean, it sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you.
He was in early Spectacular, and his design is basically like this. He has just a fins and everything.
Okay.
It looked like it's so easy to like if they want to go with this look like just like he has an extra mutation, but it's like so left field because the last time you would have seen him was what, Torment, right?
No. He was in. We like barely saw him. He was in I forget which series it was. It might have been Spectacular. The final arc, or no, fuck, that was Scorpion. I don't know when the last time it was. We've definitely seen him since Torment.
We have to.
I mean, we haven't, but he's shown up. But I'll explain at the end, but it doesn't matter anyways. So then we move into the Venom special, and the artist here is Kevin J. West, who his only really major thing was he was the artist on the 90s Guardians of the Galaxy series after Jim Valentino left for Image.
Wait, let me guess.
What?
Let me guess. After Valentino left, the book went to shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And Dan, for some reason, owns like 4 trades of that part of the run.
By the way, you mentioned Dan. We shamelessly plug his channel. Go subscribe to Dan McNamara's channel.
Does he have a channel?
Yeah. I believe for now the channel is Dan McNamara. So go check that out.
Yeah, go check out our friend Dan. See what he's doing over there. I'm sure it's entertaining.
So then it's hard to tell because we're mostly reading digital, but it seems like there is a double page vertical splash that opens this issue. Like you have to turn it to read it.
Yes.
And like it's not remotely impressive. So I'm like, this is gratuitous.
But the creatures are on the loose. It says creatures on the loose, but it should just be creature on the loose.
Right,
and
unless the other creature is Ben Reilly.
Stop.
Again, not much happens. There's a moment where Ben opens a letter he's like at his apartment, and it's not explained what the letter is until like 3 pages later, and you kind of just have to decipher that for yourself.
Yeah.
Like the plotting is terrible. He's like, oh, it's a letter, and then later he goes to a party, but like they don't say that's what the letter was for ever. But also the page after he opens this letter, before he goes to the party, he's suddenly fighting a fire, and there's no explanation, and the transition is terrible, and then he just stops fighting the fire, and I have no idea what happened.
Yep.
This issue is like some of the worst plotting that I've seen in this whole podcast, honestly.
It's bad.
And Ben makes this like one-off comment that he's afraid to take the subway, And he doesn't explain that either. And it's like, is he afraid to get recognized? Because then that's an issue that pops up later. But like, it just sounds like he's just afraid of the subway. Like he thinks there's going to be a terrorist attack. Like he won't take, like people who don't take planes after 9/11 or something like that.
He just has a phobia, the phobia of subways.
Then he takes Gabby to a party at Dr. Pearl's home, and he recognizes a bunch of people that I was like not paying 100% attention to this because it was trash, but he recognized a bunch of people that I swear to God we were not introduced to.
I really don't think so.
He's like, oh, it's them and them, but like it's written like I should know who they are.
Yeah, I don't know who these people are at all.
It's a reveal, and I'm like, these characters have never shown up before, and they were not introduced before this page.
I thought there were pages missing. Honestly, like it's like what?
It could have been. I don't know.
This great panel where Ben Reilly sees Martha Connors, and his face is like.
Yeah, so that's the part that matters. He recognizes her, and then he just fucking dips. He gets on his motorcycle and just drives away, leaving his date behind and not telling her. And Gabby's like, where did Ben go?
By the way, we skimmed over it, but one of the locations the lizard was listed at one point in these issues was that he was on the beaches of Delaware. So Billy, look out, the lizard's by you.
Then, of course, right as Ben Reilly drives away, Kurt Connors, as the lizard, crashes the party.
This is my favorite ending to an issue ever. Dr. Kurt Connors? What?
Then we move into Spectacular, which is drawn by Claude St. Aubin, who I think we've seen before, obviously not a very notable name. And this is where we learn that Armstrong, his name is Armstrong, but now that he has powers, the media, and eventually he accepts it, his code name is Strong Arm. So he goes from Armstrong to Strong Arm, and he flips back and forth between them. And I'm like, this is terrible.
It's so bad.
Yep, it is.
So he fights the lizard while everyone runs away, and Ben is like, oh shit, everyone's screaming, and he turns around and drives back. And Strong Arm, so the military lingo earlier was terrible. Now Strong Arm is making sports quips. Like he tackles the lizard and says interception, and I don't know which one's worse.
The better one is when he tries to tackle the lizard, and the lizard just plows through him anyway, and he goes fumble.
I hate it. I hate everything about this.
I hate him. I hate this guy.
Armstrong is one of the worst characters we've seen in the Clone Saga so far.
And then Scarlet Spider, Ben shows back up, and he's complaining about the Bugle giving him the Scarlet Spider name, which again, like this was already dealt with, so the continuity doesn't make any sense. And
let me tell you, I don't like Armstrong, but he's no Jack. We'll say that.
Then Lizard seems to kill Armstrong, and like it's like very heavily implied that he like rips into his chest.
Yeah.
Then he's totally fine because he has healing factor. I mean, Armstrong, I guess the idea is that he literally has what Kurt Connors fucked up on, but I don't know why they don't share that research. And then Lizard burrows away, and the cops show up, and we finally get the backstory recap on the Lizard from Dr. Pearl for like half a page. And then everything kind of chills out, so Ben goes home. And he seems to see someone in Gabby's apartment or something. But it's not even clear because first he goes by the Connors household. So it's like, for a second, I was like, okay, did Kurt transform back? And is he meeting up with his wife? Why is Strong Arm meeting up with Kurt's wife? And we learn later that Strong Arm is hanging out with Gabby. But like that's not clear at all in this issue.
No, it's not.
The final part, the Web of Spider-Man special. This is the worst cover, I think. We have Lizard looking like a poorly drawn bodybuilder.
Yeah, I can agree with that. This is and like something about the way his tail comes out of his ass. This looks wrong.
John, what's the old back in the X-Men, like how to draw like the old like from the back of the omnibus? There's like the correct way to position Nightcrawler's tail, and what is it? Don't give John Romita a heart attack.
Yeah.
This is giving John Romita a heart attack.
This issue is drawn by Roger Robinson, and so off the bat, we get the characters that were not introduced to us and that don't matter. A female coworker comes into the men's locker room and like pretty clearly sexually harasses Ben Reilly. She like whips him with something and then comments on his ass. And he's like, "Why are you in the men's locker room?" And I'm like, "Why is this in the book?"
And like Ben's like grabbing, and Ben's like afraid and like grabbing like the wall, and it's like very uncomfortable.
It's really bad.
And it doesn't come up again, and this character never appears again. So
wait,
I'm like, this is
Tony
so
Moore. She was at the party.
Yeah, she was at the party, dude.
Oh.
But we were introduced to her before the party, and then this is her last appearance.
This is terrible.
Then the lizard crashes through the ceiling, but again, the continuity, like the panel-to-panel continuity sucks. So I'm like, did he crash through the ceiling in the locker room with Ben Reilly? But no, he crashes through his coworker, Dr. Pearl's office. And the cover was trash, and the art overall is not necessarily good. But I like this issue because the artist actually drew the lizard with scales, whereas everyone else, he's always colored real flat.
As far as this bunch of issues goes, that's a pretty big step up.
Yeah. So Ben Reilly fights the lizard, and then the lizard runs away, and then the doctor is still alive, but he's in the hospital. And then we learn, picking up from the last issue's final tease, that Gabby is getting it on with Strong Arm and painting his naked body. And okay. And then Strong Arm and Ben bait the lizard at the zoo.
Well, the best part about this is Ben Reilly learns how to beat the lizard because it just so happens as he's reading his copy of the Daily Bugle that they put biological habits of lizards.
Yeah. I don't know, did they do that on purpose? Like, there was a story about the supervillain lizard on the front page. So was Jonah like, hey, someone make another story about real lizard? Or was it a total coincidence? Because I like the idea of, like, the scorpion robs a bank, and Jonah's like, yo, my science guy, get on that scorpion stuff.
Right. Walter robs the bank. You think science guys are about old people.
Lizards, they're in this summer. Come on.
The two bait him at the zoo, and Strong Arm accidentally lets out a bunch of animals and then starts fighting them for no reason.
Because he's Strong Arm.
They were just like,
superhero.
There's like a whole page of him fighting tigers.
Yep.
Yeah. And Ben, thanks to his newspaper reading and his ingenious intelligence, he uses some coolants, I guess basically fire extinguishers, to slow down the lizard, and then he webs them up to insulate the temperature, and then it just ends.
Right, the issue is over.
The cops grab the lizard, and the doctor seems to be recovering, and there's this final page with like Strong Arm talking to the unconscious doctor, and it's supposed to be like a serious thing or like melodramatic, and I'm like, I don't know this character, either of these people at all. And so, yeah, it's just over. So we never get a resolution on the whole lizard thing. Like, what was Kurt Connor's perspective? Why was he tracking down Strong Arm? Why does any of this matter?
Yeah.
And then let's address some of the characters here. So Gabriel Greer She was in 2 issues before this, way back, and then this flipbook story. She never shows up again.
Right.
And I checked that at some point beforehand, so I assumed she was going to die here. But she doesn't. So much for that supporting character and romance possibility, which was like clearly the way it was hinted at in her first 2 appearances.
Well, she found Armstrong.
Yeah. Now she never appears again, but Strong Arm actually does have one more appearance technically.
Of course he does.
But it doesn't really count. He gets mentioned in the one-shot Civil War battle damage report as a possible initiative recruit.
What?
But they don't follow through on that. And I checked. I mean, that's like a one-shot where it's not even like a comic story. It's just like, here's a bunch of bullshit like lists and data and copy and pasted panels and shit like that. And that was written by like some editors who definitely weren't working at Marvel in 1995.
Oh,
so I have no idea why he was in that, and then he never showed up.
They had to have just been given like a list of characters of like F-list characters.
Yeah, at that point, like especially for the initiative, I feel like they would definitely like were scrolling through the wiki and stuff. Because that was 12 years later, and then he never showed up again. In fact, I didn't bother to check. I doubt he's even visually shown. His name is probably just mentioned.
Oh, there's no way he's visually shown.
And the Kirk Connors retcon partner in research, Dr. Noah Pearl, who is introduced here, also never shows up again.
Figured.
And that's basically it. Next episode, we're going to cover the arcs Exiled and Time Bomb, and actually getting back into Clone Saga stuff, sort of, and getting into stuff that makes sense continuity-wise. Anyone have any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's bad. It's maybe the worst we've read so far.
It's not the worst we've read. No, it's not. It's not like an issue of Spider-Man Unlimited.
I mean, I think it might be the worst, like, altogether episode. Because Unlimited so far, like, I always go back to the World Trade Center issue, but that was in the middle of other stuff.
Yeah.
And I think this is worse than New Warriors. I think that's the only other contention episode.
I don't think so, because this was at least the New Warriors will always be worse.
Also, I'll put it at the very end here. So if you don't want spoilers, which is kind of the whole point of this podcast, but I'm gonna real quick say, skip this part, just end the video. But this is not Kirk Connors.
Oh.
which makes this story even less relevant and even more pointless and confusing.
No, wait. Okay.
This is just like a lizard. It's not the lizard.
It's the iguana.
I mean, this might actually technically be the iguana, but it's not explained in this story.
Is it like a Godzilla 98 versus Toho thing?
Yeah. But we're gonna get back to, like, all the characters in this story disappear, but we're gonna get back to this lizard in like a few episodes.
Oh
I'm
my
excited.
God.
No, I'm legitimately excited for that.
All right, so thanks for watching, and tune in next time to the Saga of the Clone Saga. Bill, you want to play us out?